With a mortgage-backed bond, the issuer establishes a pool of mortgages and then issues bonds to the investors. In order to price these mortgage-backed bonds, let's work through an example. Let's assume that $200 million of mortgage-backed bonds will be issued against a $300 million pool of mortgages in denominations. The bonds there, however, will be issued in denominations of $10,000 for 10 years with an 8% annual coupon. And let's assume that the issuer agrees that the rate of return required to sell the bonds is 9%. So in order to price these bonds, we could use the time value of money to solve for the present value. So our interest rate would be 9%. The N, or the number of periods, is 10. The payment would be the 8% coupon on the $10,000 face value, or 10,000 times 8% is $800. And the future value would be that face value of $10,000. If we solve for the present value, we would get a price of $9,358. So now let's look at how we would calculate the subsequent prices of these mortgage-backed bonds. So let's assume that 2 years after the issue of that bond we just described, that the required rate of return is still 9%. So the only thing that's changed is that there are only 8 years until maturity instead of 10. So I is still equal to 9, N is now 8, the payment is still $800, and the future value is still $10,000. But because our time to maturity has gone down, our present value has gone up, because remember, the value of this bond is going to get closer and closer to its face value as it gets closer and closer to maturity. So the present value on this bond is going to be $9,447. Now, what about a zero coupon mortgage-backed bond? That's possible also. And so that means that the bond would be sold at a deep discount because it wouldn't make any coupon payments. So if everything else is equal and we just make this a zero coupon mortgage-backed bond, then the interest rate is still 9. Going back to when it was issued, N is going to be 10 again, but the payment will be 0 because it's a zero coupon bond. Face value or future value is still 10,000, and we solve for the present value and we get a much lower result, and that's why we call it deep discount bond, because our present value is $4,632. Now, the trustee must ascertain periodically whether the market value of the mortgages that are placed in trust to secure these mortgage-backed bonds is equal to the agreed-upon level of over-collateralization. So the pricing techniques are going to be complex because there are generally many different interest rates on the mortgages that were placed in trust, and those mortgages will be amortizing their principal. So many of the mortgages in the pool may be prepaid because many of them may allow the borrower to repay the outstanding loan balance at any time. And some borrowers may default on the loans. So that all of those different possibilities for those underlying mortgages makes the pricing and the marking to market process fairly complicated.